All right, let's go. Hey, friends, how's it going? Pablo, how are you? Thanks for joining. All right, on today's episode, we got to do some unit testing. Hey, Harsh, Piyush, how's it going? Welcome. Yeah, we're gonna do some unit testing today. Last stream on Friday, we did actually complete one, or at least we think we completed one aggregate. On today's stream, I want to start I want to start implementing some unit tests so that we can, as we go through the rest of the aggregates that are in our application, we actually have them covered, with unit tests, right? Because we're doing DDD, that means, hey Lane, how's it going? Because we're doing domain-driven design, that means our aggregates, our entities, they're going to have some logic in them. I do look different today. Yeah, I got my beard yesterday. See how shorter it is now? Yeah, I was like, I haven't explored this length in like over 10 years. So yeah, uh, I feel like I already achieved a level of wizards. So I was like, yeah, let's see if I can, rock a shorter beard instead. So yeah, that's why I look different today. But yeah, uh, thanks for noticing. Awesome. Let's write some code now. All right. Max, where are you from? I'm from originally from Macedonia, but I'm actually living in Toronto in Canada. All right. Yeah, these are let me actually share this link in the chat if you want to look at the aggregates of our application, etc. So we've done the skill. Along with the skill, we've done the label value object, which we'll just keep it as a string for now because there's no logic assigned to it. It's just a label, right? The skill itself does have the ID. And we also have an array of aliases, and that is a value object because there is some logic behind the aliases, right? We can add aliases, but we can't add duplicate aliases. The aliases, I don't know if we're gonna do some validation later on, but they have to, they have to matter, or they have to be somewhat connected to the label. Will the stream be saved on the channel? Yes, it will. Yeah. Yeah, just like the previous 6, I think. We're on episode 7 right now. Yeah, just like the previous 6, this is going to be available on the channel. But yeah, we have the skill. We wrote some logic, like adding aliases, creating a skill, etc., adding a label. But there are no unit tests. And because we are early on in the project, I feel like, yeah, let's actually spend some time to configure unit tests. Because, my future self is going to thank me for adding unit tests early on and covering everything with unit tests. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do today. Unit tests. There are a couple of messages in my Discord that I want to check it out. Unit test is going to be the third thing that we're gonna do. We're gonna check out the 2 messages in the Discord. So there we go. If you haven't joined, let me actually push the link in the chat. Creatures.sh. Lane says, I haven't gotten a chance to catch up on the previous streams. What made you choose Django over Fast API? I'm assuming you're using it for a REST API. Yeah, I'm just doing REST APIs. I don't know, Django's, because it's the most popular framework, I think. So yeah, I am a complete Python noob, so I don't have any experience. So I just picked the one that is the most used, and the analytics and trends pointed to Django. So we're going to, yeah, that's why I picked Django. And what testing framework? No, we're gonna use PyTests because we're going to do Python unit tests, which are pretty much the same as, as the rest. You're just testing it. Feed first with Django. Yeah, definitely. that's what I decided to do. Cool. All right. So here we are. We have 2 messages. So we have one from Evie. It is about unit testing aggregates. So we're gonna check this out. But first, we're going to check out this message from Patrick, which is really interesting because I didn't anticipate this behavior, but let me show it to you. There we go. I'm going to exit actually from the REPL and I'm going to enter the REPL again. So let's say that we have add item function, right? Add item, it takes in an item, and there's also an items list that we basically, assign immediately as like an empty array. And inside of this function, we can just do items.add item. It was add, right? Append. Okay, there we go. JavaScript versus Python. JavaScript append, and then we'll just return the items, the actual list, right? So there's our function. If we say add item and pass in 1 without the second argument, the items list is just going to be assigned to an empty array, right? There we go. So the items list is now 1. But if I do it again, do you think this is going to be like a reassigned to an empty array and then the return result will be just an array of, with the element 2? I would think so, but no, it's not. It keeps the lists that it created. So interesting, right? Default arguments in Python, it seems like they're cached. Like when you create a function and when you first invoke it, Python basically caches these lists. And it keeps the reference alive. So when the second time you try to add it without calling or without providing the list, it's just going to reuse the list that it created from the previous run. I don't know what that is. I think we should definitely look into this. Yeah, it stores the reference. So yeah, we should be mindful of this. I was like, I can just reassign, assign this to an empty list, and that's that's good enough. But no, turns out it's not good enough. So we do have a bunch of functions, I think, that do accept optional lists as arguments. Yeah, there we go. You see this list? Aliases. So the idea is to assign it to none by default and then recreate it inside of here. Now, in this case, we're talking about the constructor, right? And one instance of this class will create the list. And then another instance will just recreate the list again because the init will be called. So I don't think we will see this problem in this case. But yeah, something to think about, right? So here's what I can do. I can say that we can do, come on. There we go. And then assign it to none, and now do if not aliases, like if it doesn't exist, then aliases is going to be, that empty list that we are, that we need. And then we can reassign this. This is basically that, right? Whether it's like the signature of the method doesn't really change in terms of usage. It's still an optional field. We can provide it or not, but the default value changes. So in this case, it's not going to be an empty list. It's going to be none. And if it is none, then we're going to assign it to an empty list. That's basically the fixed. So this is a huge gotcha moment, right? So yeah, Thank you, Patrick, for this. Okay, that one's done. I just wanted to show you this behavior because it did actually let's see the skill here. It did actually, caught me off guard because I was like, yeah, we'll just reassign it. The default one is going to be empty array. So if I don't pass a value, it's going to be an empty array, but it's not, right? I'm not sure about what's the behavior in this case. Like if we create a skill and, have the aliases either be, like the default one to be an empty aliases. I'm not sure. The idea is that this is the constructor. So if we're testing or if we're trying this trick on plain functions, it's going to behave that way. But if we try this on classes and instances of classes, I would expect the behavior to be a bit different, not to be like the same as functions. But I'm not sure. Let's just do the trick here as well, or maybe just try it. Let's try it. We are here in the REPL, so I'm going to say from skill.domain.aggregate root import skill. There's our skill. So now we can say, I don't know, React equals a new skill. We're going to pass React, and then I'm not gonna pass any, aliases, and also no ID. So for example, if we print React, we're going to see empty aliases and also the generated ID. Cool. I can now say React dot, and then we have add alias. And let's just say React.js, right? And if I print out React, we can see the aliases is now React.js. So now if I create a new skill named node, there it is, a new skill named node, and it's going to say just node. Let's print it out. There we go. You see that issue? We have node. Look at that. We have node as the skill, but the aliases contain React.js. Look at that. My JavaScript brain cannot even comprehend this, but this is an interesting behavior. See? Aliases. Even though we're talking about the constructor. Yo, Aaron, how's it going? Yeah, even though we're talking about like the actual constructor and we have two different instances of the same class, it's like default values in the constructor, the arguments, right? They can be shared across multiple instances. That's like wild. Hey, Nicola, how's it going? Welcome. Lane says, I don't usually pass lists into functions because of the pass by reference in Python. Yeah, we did have one case where we need to pass a list, so we did like the copy. We did list.copy inside, so we copy the values but lose the references. El says, please make a video on your setup, keyboard, chair, posture. I do have one video. I do have a video on that. The posture. I'm a crippled deaf. I try hard to like remain ergonomically correct, but once I start going, I can just like, I don't know, turn into a shrimp. Yeah, Aaron, I have no idea, but look at that. Now let's create another skill. I don't know. Let's do node.add alias, right? And we're going to pass node.js, right? We usually omit .js when we want to say, so let's print out node, and we can see, there we go, node and React. Let's print out React. What's going to happen? React also has node.js. So you see, it's like we create, it's like alias. It's like a freaking singleton now. The aliases we created one object and now it's a singleton, and it keeps all of the aliases into one aliases instance, right? So interesting. Yeah, this is a big no-no. So we're not gonna do this. We're gonna lose our, you know, JavaScript brain and stuff. And now we can say if not, well, ternary. I need a ternary here. Ternary operator in Python. Let's see what it says. By the way, I do have a video on my setup. You can go and check it out on my channel. I don't know the exact title because I keep, you know, changing the title. I'm just experimenting with SEO and stuff. Not me, but my wife actually. But look at this. There we go. Inside my software engineer desk setup and YouTube Studio. That's how it's called. When you see the cat, that's the one. I show all my keyboards and stuff like that. So yeah, go check it out. Let's go back now. Ternary aliases, if aliases is not none, else aliases. This is ternary in Python. So let's see. It's gonna be aliases if the aliases argument is not none. Otherwise, we're just going to create a new instance here of the aliases. Okay, inline if, yeah, this is basically like an inline if. All right, so let's try this again. I'm going to like exit the REPL and re-enter it so that we don't have, you know, these things. So I'm not gonna clean the terminal because I want to like pick at the top. So add item, we'll just say item. Actually, not add item. I'm just going to like from skill domain aggregate roots. I'm going to import skill. And now let's, underscore. There we go. And now let's do React equals a new skill with the name React. Aliases is an empty, so react.add underscore alias. React.js. And now React contains React.js. Good. Now let's try Node. Node is a new skill. Node. Print it out. There we go. So now Node does not have any aliases. I can do node.add alias and pass in node.js. Print it out. Node.js. Print out React.js. So now we have the correct aliases for the two skills. Damn it. Look at that. Interesting. Okay, so in Python, and we should even like clip this. In Python, you shouldn't use default values in arguments because there's going to be an unexpected behavior. It's like defining a singleton. Right, you create that instance or you assign that value on the first invocation, and then every next invocation of that function or class or whatever it is, it's just going to reuse that value. Unless maybe primitives, like if we have a string and it's empty, it's definitely going to be yeah. Unless it's like primitives. Lists are not primitives. They are lists that hold potentially primitives or other, you know, non-primitive objects. But yeah, if we're talking about lists or even like default instances of classes, do not use default values in the arguments. Big gotcha there. All right, let's just check out our functions, and looks like we're good. If you want an optional, assign it to none. Check if it's, you know, if it's none, then assign it to a list inside, but not in the arguments, because apparently, yeah, they get cached. Cool. So, yeah, step one done. interesting. Again, thank you, Patrick, um, this for pointing this out, because I would. It was if it was like the last thing in this world, I would not have anticipated the default value to be like reused across instances. Okay, very nice. We're just gonna like do a reaction. Now let's check out this. We're going to transition into unit testing now. I'm gonna check out this post on LinkedIn. Avi shared that to me. I don't know who is it by. Michael Azarhad. So I'm also going to share this in the chat if you want to check it out. But yeah, it's in the Discord. You can join and look at the Millionaire channel there. All right, so Michael says, do not unit test directly your aggregates. Favor unit testing with only both SUT, which is system under tests, if I recall, application services, and any complex domain services. By testing through application services and domain services, you will obtain far less tests. That application service creates two aggregates in the same transaction. It's aware of the need for atomic transactions. A specific unit test of aggregate, if any, would not be aware of that invariant. You would have to create another test through the application service or domain service to ensure both changes are updated in the same flow. Okay? If you drive your code from an application service or domain service, that strong relationship is explicit for the test without requiring any other tests. What does this mean? Let me just zoom in. What does this mean? So we have aggregates, and just a quick refresher. If we have any changes to like any value objects or nested entities, they have to go through the aggregate, right? So for example, in this case, we have a user, and that's the aggregate. It's the big red block at the top, but it also has a user profile. So if we want to update the user profile, we have to go through the user, right? Commands go in here, and then the aggregate, propagates the commands or invokes the changes that need to be, the mutations that need to be mutated or invoked. So in this case, yeah, as I mentioned, if we need to change the user profile, even though it's an entity and it does have an ID, and for example, we can potentially, have access to it, we should not trigger commands on top of it. We can say user.userprofile. Change name or change email. We should go through the user. That's what, that's how aggregates and nested value objects and entities define their relationship. So Michael here says that don't unit test directly the aggregate. So that means do not test the user aggregate or skill aggregate. Tests the application services or any complex domain services. By services, I think he means just like everything else, like value objects, services, etc. Although if we're talking about domain-driven design in combined with clean architecture, then you wouldn't test services, because services usually use third-party applications, and you don't want to test those, right? That means you're going to have use case, service use case object, or if you're doing CQRS commands, test the commands, do not test the aggregate itself, because the aggregate just triggers those changes, right? So if we, for example, in this case, we have the aliases value object, right? So we need to test the aliases value object. You want to test the business behavior, not the underlying model, if you can avoid it. I would advocate against testing implementation details. You should be able to refactor your code that results in the same experience for the end user without breaking the tests. Aaron says, but always depend on how complex the model layer behavior is. Yeah, so like, if I understand this correctly, that means we should not be testing the skill, because the skill itself doesn't actually do anything other than the aggregate root doesn't actually do anything other than propagate some stuff, right? But it does have some logic. Like there's the match logic here. We might need to turn the label into a value object if we want to have a change label, right? We should have that method. Probably, I don't know. But if we were to have a change label method, it's going to have the self and the new label as a string. We will just say self.label is the new label. str, again, JavaScript brain. This one, this is a logic, right? There might be some validation inside, like if not, or like if len of the new label is less than 1, we want to raise a value error. You want to say new label must not be an empty string. This needs to be tested, right? All right, let's catch up with some of the comments. It does depend on how complex the model layer behavior is. Again, it depends. Testing these models would be a good way to get started testing. You don't need to keep tests around when TDDing, as you could delete some tests before committing in a production system. Yaka says, as for these very atomic tiny things like the skill, I would only unit test things that include logic that cannot easily compute in my head the first time I read it. Things like add, alias, save strings into database don't need testing, of course, but some method with 10 ifs and reduce would make a sense to test it. Yeah. True, yeah. It's better to like wait to see the trade-offs before applying, you know, unit testing and stuff. Okay, cool. Let me just zoom in. This looks like it's not zoomed in enough. Okay, so in this case then, let's... Should we like even skip unit testing at all? We don't have any. We just have one aggregate with one lousy value object, and that's it. Not much to test. Okay, yeah, let's just go through the LinkedIn post in that case, and we can like skip unit testing until, you know, we have something, until we have like more meat on the bone. The lousy aggregates to practice. The aggregates or the value objects? I was thinking on the aliases value object on this one, because this one is like, you know, oh, come on, there we go. This one should be, you know, should be pretty fair, because it has add, remove, contains, length. Yeah, all right, let's, yeah, I like that. We can practice, we can do like have one test and even like try to see how we can incorporate that test into, for example, CI/CD or something like that. Yeah, just so, you know, just so we have some experience writing unit tests in Python, because I have 0 right now. We can do that. Then we can finish the LinkedIn posts, but for the actual real unit tests, we're gonna see later. Yeah. All right. So I don't know how much episodes back was that, but let's just say a couple of episodes back, Aaron and I talked about where do we want to keep the tests. And we talked about, you know, keeping the tests next to the actual file that you're testing. If you keep saying you don't need tests yet, you'll never get really around to adding them. True. Yeah. All right, so we're going to add one test, and we're going to add the file here next to the, for example, we're going to be testing the aliases.py file, you know, one class per file. We can keep that rule, one class per file. Let's just create one more file here, aliases underscore test.py, and that's where we're going to have our tests, right? Come on now. Aliases underscore test.py. There we go. That's the robot actually. What's the naming convention in Python unit tests? Let's see what the robot says. I have an aliases.py file that contains a value object. In case it doesn't, you know, get it, I want to add a test file next to it. How should I name it? And also, like, does the PyTest actually pick up? Oh, there we go. Test underscore. It's tests aliases, not aliases underscore tests. Okay. Does PyTest automatically pick up files containing tests, or they need to be named specifically? Let's see if the PyTest library is smart. Okay, there we go. So there is a pattern. Or underscore test. Well, or underscore test. So we should be good with underscore tests. Like a postfix. It doesn't have to be like a prefix. Cool. Okay, thank you, robot. Let's just go. Actually, in here, go to Brave and let's see PyTests getting started. Let's see how tests look like in Python. Yeah, better collocation. If it's like test underscore something, then we'll have files that start, you know, with letter before T above it, and also files that start with letter after T below it. So our test files will be just like a huge block between other tests. So like that's why I like the postfix, because it's going to be next to the file that we're testing. It's just going to have a postfix. Cool. So I already have this PyTests, the module installed in the requirements in the project. And let's see. Here's our function. And it is underscore test underscore. Oh, it doesn't matter then. We just need to assert. And if we say PyTest, it just goes through all the underscore tests, postfixes, and it just triggers the whole tests. Cool. So this is literally just use assert and that's it. Okay, so in this case, from aliases, import aliases like this. And we can say test add, right? Okay. Test add, and we're just going to create an aliases. Dot add, and we're going to say new, and now we need to assert that the aliases contain. So this is even a different function. I'm not sure what are the rules when we're using another function, but we're testing this one. I guess it's fine because we are going to cover. How are we going to cover this one? Actually, I think we can. Yeah, aliases.aliases. So we can like get into the actual aliases. Cool. Although I think because we have a value object here, this should not be like public. So I'm going to rename it with a dunder. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be accessible. It is going to be accessible. It's just going to be prefixed with a dunder. So that means do not use this outside. There are methods, right? Okay, so then I'm going to access the property instead of the method. And let's see. Are you, Aaron, are you referring to like jump in insert mode? Shouldn't do this in tests. Okay, well, what should we do then? How do we test the addition? Okay. Do not break encapsulation for testing. So I guess we should just use the contains method, right? Use the method itself. But then we're also gonna have yeah. How if we use the contains method, we're just not gonna test the contains, like it's should be covered by all of the other tests, or how should we do this? That's one public API. Cool. Okay. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. So we can just say contains new and also assert that the aliases.length is going to be 1. Oh, hold on a second. Equals to 1. But in this case, is there like a length method that I can override? It says the robot. Because this is a method in this case, I can like prefix it with a property. So it's like this, but this is not Pythonic. So I want to see if we can like if there's a method that I can override it. Is there len method that we can override in classes that'll return the number of, I don't know, elements a class has when we use the len function? Yeah, there is a dunder len. Okay, nice. So that's what we're going to use. Dunder, feel the dunder. And now we're going to basically do len of aliases equals to 1. So we actually use Python instead of, you know, custom methods here. Maybe there's like one for contains as well. I don't know. For now, we'll just, you know, keep this. And also, okay, yeah. So in order to test this, I don't need it. I don't need the dunder len as like an assertion. Also do the remove just in now tests. So I'm going to add new. I'm going to assert that it has new, and then I'm going to aliases remove new, and I'm going to assert that not aliases. Is this the right? I mean, you don't need the direct test for contains. Yeah. Okay. There we go now. This should be done, right? You can even like add one more for the length. I know it's, you know, is there a not modifier? I don't know. On the contains assert, there's like assert. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see if my new vim does have something for testing. I think it does. I can say run nearest. Okay, and I was going to, yeah, attempted a relative import with no known parent package. Is this going to be then correct if from skill domain value objects aliases you can override contains and check with the in. Oh, so there is a contains. Interesting. That's better. I like to use as much of the Python API. Now instead of doing this, I can say new in aliases like this. And now we can say not in, right? New, not in aliases. And the length should be 0. Nice. Okay. See this. Something happens in my NeoVim config where I hit the leader key. It's like space. What is that? Okay, save it. I think I'm going to ditch the lazy Vim because it keeps changing and it keeps, you know, causing these weird, I don't know, the quality of it, it's just not what, you know, production ready. Because now, you know, I have to like restart NeoVim. I don't want to do that. Okay, so let's run the nearest test and see that it still fails. And this is because there's no module named skill, because yeah, I'm testing a function here, but it doesn't take into account the whole, you know. Let me actually just pick the virtual environment. Maybe that will fix it. See? Again. I have to fix this. See? Not cool. I don't know what causes this. And now I don't have a leader key. Damn it. Alright, if I'm not recording a macro. Good point. Let's see. Lane says it's starting to look like you're re-implementing a list. Technically, yeah. It may be worth looking into inheriting from list and implementing it that way. Ooh, that's also a good idea. Yeah. Let's see that. Let me actually run this again. Actually, v environment select the environment v-env. Run it again. No, so I guess I have to like run it here in this case. I'm just gonna say pytests. What is going on? No module name skill. Okay, so this is an actual issue. It's not about like virtual environment or stuff like that. Let's see. Oh, cool. We can actually have like a group in a class. Test organization, sharing fixtures for tests only in particular classes, applying marks. Okay, so I guess that's not, and also like sharing values. Okay. All right, so in this case, we need, I'm actually extra robot, why not? Edward, good morning. PyTest fails to import from the skill module. How can I fix this? Okay, robot. You can modify the Python path to include the root directory. Why should I do that? Create a pytest ini. Ah, there we go. So there is a pytest.ini. And we can add here pytest.ini. And it was... What was that again? Why did I switch from Arc to Brave? Well, Arc just said we're not maintaining Arc anymore, so I just went back to Brave. PyTest ini set Python path to discover modules. So a PyTest, there's a PyTest. Okay, there's the file. Is located at the root of your project. Cool it is. Run this. There we go. There we go. Nice. Look at that. And let's even check this out. Nice. So my NeoTests sidebar also, I can just say go to the root and just hit R and just run all of the tests. Cool. Okay, so now we have a good testing environment. Let's just, you know, keep going. Nice. Okay. Cool, 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 cool. Maybe I should actually wrap the aliases here. Always make sure you see your test fail. Yeah. There was an interesting like an image drawing. First test fail. Like two scientists with a car and they're testing. I can't find it now. But it was like two scientists are testing whether the car will, you know, fall from the cliff successfully. And like the first test should be, you know, failed. So they just get a car and they just push it and say, okay, the first test failed. Now let's continue with the testing. But yeah, we should make sure that the first test fails. So if I do this and run it, okay, check the output, it should say, yeah, there we go. Assert 0 equals to 1. We expected 1, but it actually, the value is 0. Nice. Yeah, well, it's going to be easy in TDD because we will write the tests first, and of course they're gonna fail because we won't have anything, not even the methods themselves. But yeah, definitely a good reminder that we should see the test fail. All right, what I want to do now is just put these into like a single test class, like this, tests, aliases, and just, you know, convert these into methods. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, there we go. So now we have a class that has these two. So like in JavaScript, that would be, come on now, man, I hate this. I hate this. If you want to get even more Pythonic, you can override appends, but that enforces my point that you're re-implementing a list. Yeah, I want to look into that now. How we can, because we are already extending from value objects. We should extend to list as well. Maybe. Value object has an equals and also a hash overrides. But if we put the list after value object, then the What was the abbreviation? Python methods overriding. I don't know. There was like a abbreviation when we extend from two classes. We the methods of the firsts will will be taken instead of the method of the second. So it's like a top to bottom type of thing. Yeah. So equality and hash will be from the value object, but everything else will be from the lists list class that we're going to extend. I think it should be, aliases should be from the lists. And override the methods. Yeah, so append and remove, I guess, right? So instead of add and remove, there's going to be append, because add is my JavaScript brain, and append is how we do things in Python. So if I do this basically then, yeah, there is no append method now. So I guess I do need to extend from the class, right? Hey Srivashu, hey everyone jumping in right now. What's the responsibility of this class? This is just the aliases value object class, and we have a list or a set of aliases for every skill. If you have access to the chat, the previous chat, I share the link. Oh, it's just appends. Okay, so it's not we don't override this basically. We just say appends. Yeah. Yeah. I have to inherit, but this will just work. So instead of add, we just do append, because that's the... Oh no, hold on a second now. Sets have the add method, and lists have the append method. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep the add back. Revert to the add so that we can... Oh, look at that now. Append or append. Well, of course. Update yourself. There we go. Just needed to save the file. Okay, I guess that's it, right? Yeah. Yeah, so we only have 2 tests for the add and remove, but consequentially we also test the contains and length with this, right? With these 2 assertions. Yeah, there should be no duplicates. That's why we don't even check if the alias exists. We only check if the alias, when we want to add an alias, if it's like non-existent, or if it's not even a string. That's only then we raise a value error. And now we need to add tests for those as well. Should you actually test if it can't have duplicates? We can actually, yeah, let's actually do that. Here we can say aliases.add and like add new again. And I can assert new is going to be in the aliases, but I can say aliases, the length of it, the aliases is not going to change, right? So, or should I say duplicates? And now I can add a new one, and it's still going to be 1. Maybe a test for the delimiter would be useful then, because what's actually new behavior that set doesn't implement? True. Yeah, that's going to be the string delimiter. And also I want to cover the raising the value errors as well, because we want to make sure that we're raising errors when we need to raise the errors. Not to test implementation, that's covered on the language level. In this case, yeah, the duplicates, it's just, yeah. It's already, yeah, technically it's already covered by the set itself, right? You know, might as well just keep it in case we change it later. What if we like change the type? Instead of a set, we use something else. Should we have this test? It is a behavior, but it comes from the language itself. As long as we use this this data structure, but if we don't use that data structure that, you know, brings that behavior to the table, we are, you know, we're not gonna have that behavior. So yeah, might as well just like leave this here. I don't think it's going to be like a big deal. So we have the add, the, you know, the successful add. Then we have the duplicates add. So if we add new twice, the length is not going to change. Now let's test the value error. Let's create a new aliases instance. We are going to add, actually it was like, I need to import pytest. I need to do with pytest dot raises, yes, a value error. And now I can do aliases dot add and empty. Oh, the type is always a string now. Okay, I'm going to ignore these types. How do I ignore that? How do I ignore the type? Because this can happen in runtime, right? Seeing as you've already written the code, you can do reverse TDD, which involves commenting out the implementation and then running your tests. Right, yeah, that as well. Type ignore. Okay, I know that we're never going to like land this, but of course, if we want to test that the value error, you know, gets raised when we pass not a string but a none. Actually, that can be true, right? Technically. So let's see. Oh, there we go. Missing one required positional argument on the alias. Okay, so it does. We can't really test it, right? Alias has to be a string. So I can say false with capital F, of course. There is a positional argument, but it's not a string. So there we go. It raises that error. And now let's do like a reverse TDD. I'm actually gonna bring this up and comment this out. If I run this test, it's going to fail. It's not raising an error. What the hell did I just do? Pass a number, yeah. There we go. So either a false, you know, or like a number, doesn't matter. All of these cases should raise a value error. It is, yeah, that's what I was like referring to. If it's a difference between compile time and runtime, we might have a type for the aliases, and like the aliases can be read from the database, but if the aliases, that specific alias does not exist in the database, then the value is not going to be a string. It's probably going to be none. Let's say that, you know, we end up in a situation where at runtime, even though our types indicate that we're using strings, reading it from the database, it might be none. Yeah, they're hints. They're not enforced on the runtime. Yeah, but in this case, how can I test this one? Because this one fails. It says you're missing one required positional argument. And if we pass none, you know, it's just going to, that's basically going to be an exception, right? So I don't think I can test the none, this one. So then this part of the condition can't be tested. Yeah, it's an editor feature. Yeah. Okay, so like if we pass something that's not a string, we can, you know, we can expect the value error to be raised. Cool. So this looks correct. We have 4 test cases. We have the happy path, right? Let's actually do another one, like add another, and then, you know, we can assert that another is in aliases, so it's not like a single one, and then assert that the length of the aliases have grown from 1 to 2, just so we can, you know, have that. And then we test the duplicates again, just so we can have this. I know that we're using a set, but that's we're testing like the behavior, not the implementation detail. If we're not using set, then we still need to account for duplicates if we don't have this test and refactor the implementation instead of a set to use something else. And we don't have this test, then we might even forget about testing duplicates. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if we this part is like redundant, and in this case this is also redundant, but it's the IDE says that it's, you know, wrong. But let's just see. I'm gonna run this test again. Add the value error. Okay, so now we are raising these errors. If I comment this out and save it and run this, did not raise. So even though the IDE says type analysis, what's that? Indicates code is unreachable at runtime, that's not going to be the case, right? So we should definitely keep not alias there. We can't really test it, but it's good to have the guard, at least, right? That's what we're saying here. Yeah. Okay, cool. Now let's do the remove. Removal works just fine, right? We add the new, we make sure that new is added. We do have a test for that, but still, we do make sure that the new is added, and we remove it, and now we make sure that the new is not there. It will return false if it's a none. It will be true if you did is instance A or none. Oh, okay. Yeah. And with this, we will cover the if the alias is none as well, right? Both, like it's gonna make sure that it's not of the type none, or actually not none. Oh, I don't need not alias. Interesting. Okay. In this case, we're just going to have to like mute this somehow. Type analysis indicates code is unreachable. I hate that it's going to be there, but it's just the, you know, I guess that's just Python. The difference between the runtime and the, okay. No, it does work. Like, let's say that we don't have this, right? And I make sure that I don't raise because it's commented out. Oh, it also checks for empty strings. Okay. And if I test this again, it works. So it definitely does work. But yeah, empty strings as well. Empty strings, we do need that. Maybe that's why I don't have an empty string test. Maybe like I glanced at, made sure that, you know, not alias tested, but I forgotten that not alias test empty strings as well. Yeah. We can even like make sure that that happens. So with pytest raises value error, and I'm not even going to type ignore this because it is a string, but it's empty. In this case, yeah, it still raises the error, even if we pass an empty empty string. It is string, it's not none, but we still need to raise the value error. So is the implicit assuming that the alias can never be an empty string? Yeah. Yeah, it is simple. I know, Aaron. No need to have exhaustive tests for nullable cases, really. Yeah, it's just that. You don't have to cover every single character. What if I do this then? What if I do... Lazar, is that... True, true, yeah. Okay, so removal works. Let's just, you know, test when the removal throws a value error, and that's it then. Test remove a value error with an underscore. Get the self. We don't even need to add. I can just say with pytest raises value error, and now we can say aliases dot remove, and we can have an empty, but we can have we can have an empty string. Pretty much the same, right? So instead of just adding, we will try to remove them. Okay, so we create new aliases. We try to remove false. It should throw a value error. It will try to remove 1, 2, 3 again, and also an empty string. Okay, this is good. If I block out this functionality, there we go. And now it's not throwing it. Or raising it to be more Pythonic. Weird question, but doesn't pytest have something like before each so that you can move the aliases declaration? Probably, yeah. But how's that gonna work? Like before each, I might have okay. So you're saying this basically. Have aliases here of the type aliases. And then have before each, so I don't need to recreate that. Where are those lifecycle? Oh yeah, I just want to like have it here for academic purposes. I'm gonna ask the robot. Does pytest have something like before each or after each? It does have fixtures. Oh, setup and teardown. So it's one fixture. We set the auto use to true, and then with the yield, we're actually invoking the test. So setup and teardown is one function instead of before each and after each. Before we yield, that's the setup. We yield the test, and then after we yield it, that's the teardown. Cool. I'm actually gonna have this then. Like this, right? We can say aliases equals a new instance. So I can do this, but then I'm gonna have to do self. And that's going to add a bunch of stuff. I could have gotten, you know, could have fixed this with the self.aliases. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna keep this just so, you know, just so we can have something to reference later on. But yeah, remove this, and now also remove this, and also remove this. Now I'm going to try to three more stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now we can do self.escape, and there we go. Quick refactor. Nice. Okay, that's about it. I can run this. Everything is running correctly. If I remove a test or remove something, something's gonna break. Cool. Nice. That was satisfying. Fixtures are even more powerful than that, because you can make a function that gets injected into an each test instead of having to use self.aliases. Interesting. Yeah. Tell us how. We can check it out. I know that with yield, we basically, this is when we invoke the tests. But you think I can do like this? Like I can pass an argument to the yield, and now here we can like somehow get it. Can we pass arguments to yield and access them from within the test cases? Yeah, you can. Nice. Oh, yield resource. That's the... Oh, I can like get it from... So I can yield it and then invoke it again. Resource equals setup and teardown, and then resource is going to be that value. So that's what we can do basically. Yeah, okay. So instead of doing self.aliases, we can say aliases equals to setup and teardown. So setup, the aliases will be whatever the setup and teardown method returns. There's one fixture. There's another one. My fruits. Oh, you can like get... Interesting. So like if you reference this method, you get the value, right? It looks to me like that. Nice. So like if we put this in the arguments, basically the function will be triggered and the return will be returned, right? So my fruit is going to be a fruit, not a function. It doesn't look like obvious to me. It looks like we're passing a reference to the function, but not like my fruit is passed into parameters, it gives that value. Yeah. But I don't know. For some reason, I don't like it. It's like reference. It's like yeah. Cool. I mean, yeah, we can have this in mind, but I wouldn't put it in this case. Because I think it's gonna be like simpler like this. Yeah. Well, the pads are some generic ones from Amazon. It's called Brilla or something like that. And the keycaps are the one from the Voyager, the not with the legends, like the blank ones. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. That's a cool trick that Lane shared, but I would still keep it like this, just so that my JavaScript brain, you know, can comprehend and understand this code. That's a cool trick, but I will definitely, you know, miss it or misread it later on. Yeah. Okay, so we do have all the tests, if I'm not wrong, right? We have the removal and also the value error. We have the add duplicates and also value error. That's basically it. And we also have a case where we have, you know, where we have the setup and tear down. Yeah. This is a complete test class that tests the behavior of this. Oh wait, hold on a second. Delimiter and also the alternative, probably from string, right? Yeah, we're not done yet. Okay, so let's do the delimiter. What we want to do is self.aliases add. I'm gonna add 1. I'm gonna add 2, and I want to assert that when we print out self.aliases, it's going to key switches, the brown ones, the brown chalk that comes from, you know, come with the Voyager, stock ones. When we print this out, we want to see 1, 3 pipes, 2. That's the delimiter, right? If I run this, it's not correct. Let's see why. Oh, hold on a second, that's a successful test. Give me the output of this one. Assert none equals to 1 or 2. Well, how can I test the string now? Is there like a toString? Because the print only prints out to the output. How can I test the overridden str method? Oh, just the str, of course, casted to a string, not printed. Damn it. I guess print does that, right? But I just need to cast this, the whole instance, to a string in order to test that. And it's still not the case. Okay. 2 1 equals to 1 2. See? Order. Interesting. I didn't even anticipate this. But do you see? We add the 1, we add the 2, and now we have 1 and 2. But because O is after T, when we say, you know, delimiter.join aliases, 2 is going to be before 1. Okay, that's fine. It's just values. The order does not matter. So I'm just going to change the tests. Yeah, exactly. But I'm gonna add 3 as well, or like, I don't know, I'm gonna add 5 because F is at the, you know, at the start, and 1 and 2 like O and T are at the bottom. So we need to have Oh, not that one, but this one. 5, 2, 1, right? That should be the case. There we go. 5, 2, 1. If we did 2, 5, 1, that'll just break because of the alphabetical ordering, which is cool. I mean, we can keep it like this. But the 5 here indicates that 5, 2, 1. No, it doesn't. I'm gonna add 5 here. 5, 1, 2. It's gonna be 5, 2, 1. And now it's more, you know, it's more, it's like self-explaining that order does not matter. We have 5 as the first order. Might as well like put it as the second one. 1, 5, 2, 5, 2, 1. Are you sure it's alphabetical? It's just not just reversed. Yeah. Oh, look at that now. 1, 2, 5. 1, 2, 5 does not equal 5, 2, 1. What? And if I move 5 here, 2, 1, 5. 2, 1, 5. If I move it here, 5, 1, 2. How is this? 2, 1, 5. 1, 2, 5. Oh, it is not deterministic. Interesting. They're always different, right? Let's see this. Yeah, it's better if we sort them before printing, definitely. Okay, yeah, let's do that. We need to order before we print them. Doesn't matter how we keep them here. We can just order them in the string, inside of the string method. Or order them when we add them. So that way the string method does not have to like do any stuff like add the new alias and like reorder them. But that's going to be expensive, right? Because it's not going to matter in between adding 2 aliases or 3 aliases. The order does not matter. It's only when we want to save it to a database. So in that case, not to make this one the add function a heavier function, we'll just add the string as a heavier function. Yeah, we don't. It is expensive, so we'll just keep the string method to order the aliases. How do we order in Python? Yeah, for a realistic number of aliases, like we're gonna have React, and how many aliases can React have? 2, 3, 4. But yeah, still. How do I order the self.aliases set before alphabetically? Let's see. Oh, it's just sorted, and that's it. By default, it is alphabetically. If we wanna do like, it's like increased, right? Increment alphabetical. If we want to decrement alphabetical, we might need to provide something to the sorted function, but we'll just, you know, we'll keep it simple. Actually, let's try this. I'm gonna visual until here. I'm gonna add this, and I'm gonna add sorted. Nice, there we go. Okay, so in this case, let's try that. 5, 2, 1. It is 5, 1, and 2. Okay. OPQRST, correct. So there we go. Parth asks, chat, is he going to build the AI model part first or the web app part first? We're doing the web app part first. Yeah, not numbers for this, definitely better. Okay, so I'm gonna do, I don't know. Let's do Apple B and what else? Like ABCs. Apple B cucumber. Okay, so Apple B cucumber. First is the apple, then it's the P, then it's the cucumber. And this works if I change the order of the addition works as well. So doesn't matter how we add them. Cat, yeah. Doesn't matter how we add them. Actually, I like cat. The order doesn't matter. When we print them out, they're always going to be alphabetical. Might as well, if we're here, instead of apple, do ant B and a cat. And they're also in incrementing sizes. Okay, cool. B cat ant B cat. Yeah. Cool. All right, we have tested the delimiter. Yeah, for testing delimiter, won't we want to split it by the delimiter and then test the individual elements again? That's the other method. That's the from string. Because I do have that. See? From string, we'll receive a string like this one, the ant B cat, and then it's going to split it on the delimiter, and then we can test that the length is 3 and the elements are cat, B, and ant. Because we should test the from string class method as well. Yeah. Okay, so now we're not going to be using self.aliases, we're going to create a new one. Yeah, we're going to create a new one. And it's just going to be, I don't know, from string, aliases from string, and I'm going to pass ant, B, or cat, right? And now we can test that the length of the from string, there we go, you see? Underscore, and then lowercase s is equal to 3, and then there's also and, oh yeah, and in from string, and B and cat. There it is. If I add chat, it's not gonna be. So the test can fail. That means the test is correctly doing this. But yeah, there we go. This is the delimiter test again. So we're not testing the delimiter per se. We are testing the toString, or like string overrides, STR override. So we're testing the STR override. When we want to save that to the database, it should be saved as this. But when we want to test the from string method, we pass this, and then we make sure that the delimiter is correctly, the delimiter is correct, and then we basically unpack the string correctly. Oh, like a contains method that accepts multiple? Yeah. That can be cool. A contains method. We already have this, but this is for single values, right? If this is in there, if this is in there, etc. But true, yeah. Can we also do the same for adds? Probably. Okay. But yeah, that's basically the API. All right, this is the unit tests. For I think we have covered everything now, all the methods, even including the string override and also the from string class methods. Now we have tests. If you look at your error messages, you'll be getting generic false messages. What do you mean? What error messages are you referring to, man? One aspect of testing is getting a good assertion that will help you debug when tests fail. All right, so you mean, yeah, I'm just using assert. I know that I can do comma and then provide a message, right? Delimiter. I think that we can do this. Let's actually try that. That's a really good idea. Thanks, Aaron. Check this out. Value does not get added, right? Aliases length does not increment. And this will be pretty much the same, right? Again, aliases length does not increment. Cool. Okay, so there we go. Test add. I can run this. Right? All good. But if I don't add the alias and just like check for the value error instead, the alias is not going to be add, and also the length is not going to increment. So if I just run this, there we go. Value does not get added to aliases. I can even make this dynamic, right? But that's what basically we can do in this case. I can do this once, so I can do this, so I can do nothing. Like this and this. Nope, and this. Come on. I need to. It was middle finger. There we go. Damn it, it's not a new. And we don't even need this. But yeah, if we were to add like the dynamic values, we could have done that. Yeah. A value new does not get added to aliases. So that's how we can also provide but you were referring to like error methods, error messages, right? Custom error messages. Because the assertion error is probably going to be shown, right? Say if we remove this. Oh, it's not going to be an assertion error. It's not going to be the value error. It's going to be this one. More specific error messages from assertions. I don't get it. Isn't this the like specific messages? Like we're trying to assert that the new element is in the aliases, and now this is the message. The value does not get added to the aliases. It's not more specific because it's a simple case, but still. Oh. For example, would say you expected this method to be called, but it wasn't. Right, right. So you're referring to, yeah, you're referring to that. Yeah, method call count to be true is less specific. Yeah. Okay, let me then get these back because I don't think we need them. So you're talking about like this assertion, for example? It'll just return false. Like assert new in self.aliases is just going to return false. Let's check it out. Basic patterns and examples. Pass different values to a test function depending on command line options. Dynamically adding command line options, control skipping of tests according to command line options. Well integrated assertion helpers. Okay, maybe assertion helpers are that. Okay, so instead of like doing asserts, we can do PyTest fail. Yeah. It says the robot. Oh. Is there an assertion library in PyTest that basically allows us to write more explicit assertions like we can in JavaScript? And I'm going to provide an example. I'm going to use Aaron's example here. Expect X to have been called. Reads as we expected X to have been called instead of expressive, actually. Yeah, expressive assertion, not explicit, but like expressive, because these are explicit, they're just not expressive. Okay, let's do it. Mocker. There's a thing called Mocker. I'm actually going to open this and make some room here so that you can see the robot chat. There we go. Okay, let's check this out then. Yeah, PyTest can be used with the PyTest mock library to write more expressive assertions, similar to JavaScript's expect syntax. The PyTest mock library provides a mocker fixture that can be used to create mocks and assert their behavior. That's mocking libraries, yeah. We don't want to mock the behavior. We just want to see if there's an API or like a syntax. It didn't understand us. Srivasu asked, do we want negative test case like trying to add invalid value? We do have that, yeah. That's the test value error. See, when we add false or number or an empty string, we expect a value error. Yeah, mocking is definitely a very yeah, let's try that. We're not interested in mocking. We're interested in syntax that will allow us to write more expressive assertions, like, let's use the new example, expect X to contain, I don't know, Y, instead of Y, assert Y in X. Oh, there's a PyTest expect library which provides a syntax similar to JavaScript's expect. Okay, so we can do expect aliases to contain new, to contain, to equal, to be true, etc., which can make your tests more readable. I don't know, maybe, but if it's not native and it's a library, I wouldn't use it just for the sake of, you know, for the sake of aligning it to JavaScript's API, right? Because this is Python. I would just like keep it as like this. But yeah, there is a, apparently there is a PyTest expect library that we can use. Yeah. All right, tests are done. Woohoo! Nice. So now if we go and close out and do PyTest here, yep, 7 passed in 20 milliseconds. Yeah, we're just gonna stay. But a good point though. Good point though. Now we know. PyTest underscore expect. Was it underscore? Yeah. Probably. But yeah. Okay, so we do have this. We have the test for that. Let's actually finish this article because we just looked at the first section here. There's like a few more stuff with opinions. Let's talk about them briefly. And with the remaining time, we can go and start to implement, you know, continue to implement the other aggregates so that we can, you know, build out the logic first. And then we're going to hook up the database so that we can have persistence. And at the end, I don't know, probably the authentication, and our API is basically done. That's the idea. At least the non-AI version, the non-AI part. Then we can focus on the front end, hook the front end to the back end, and at the end we'll do the AI, and that's gonna be, I guess, the most fun, you know, part of this stream. All right, contextual naming. Animal can run in a race between a horse and a lion. The lion should win. The label tells a story, the why an animal should run. Okay, this is like I wouldn't do like if I tested if an animal can run, I will just say an animal can run. But if there's a difference between two different animals, then I'm going to explain the difference in here. There was an interesting let me actually find it. An interesting lesson. Where was that? There was in Next.js clean architecture project. Oh, god damn it. What? You don't have this? Oh, CD Nicola Flazar, and then we have Next.js clean architecture. And now we want to go to tests, unit, yeah, sure, application, use cases, auth, whatever. Just give me the first one. And there's that great guide on tests names. And I'm gonna share this in the chat so you can check it out, but it's definitely an interesting naming convention. Yeah, starting with the verb sets the rest of the test name on the right path. Right, in this case, we're talking about JavaScript. I don't know about Python. Yeah, Artemis is the best. So this is JavaScript, it's not Python. In JavaScript, we have it. In Python, we don't. In JavaScript, it reads better if we do this. It navigates to the home page, it displays the greeting message, etc. Instead of it homepage or it animal can run. It does make sense. But in Python, that's gonna be different, right? Because the syntax is different. And approaching or like reading the tests functions, because we're talking about functions really, right? There is no message like this. In JavaScript, we see a message and then we have the callback with the function. I don't see Like I don't see the message in Python. Let's go back to millionaire. We only have the function name. Maybe there are some like tests title, I don't know, providing descriptions and stuff. Oh, there can be something like this, like a, it's not a doc string, it's just a string. Well, let's actually try that out. Test add self. It can add aliases. Ask the robot to improve the names, then paste the Artem's article and say, now use these guidelines to rewrite my test names. Yeah, that can be like an interesting experiment, but let's see if we can make this work. It can add aliases. If I open the, if I just open the tests sidebar, it's just the names of the functions. Oh, there we go again. But if I do PyTests, can I do like a PyTest with verbose or something like that? Test cases. Tested cases. Collect only will show a tree-like structure of the collected nodes. PyTest k. Collect only. Okay, so it only does that. It's the functions. It's not. So there are no messages in PyTests. Let's actually do this. Are there messages in PyTests for test cases, just like we have messages in JavaScript with the it function? You can use the parameterize. PyTest mark parameterize decorator to provide description for a test cases similar to the messages in the JavaScript's it function. Here's an example. In this example, it can add aliases, which is what we did basically. Provides a description for the test case similar to the message. When you run PyTest, these doc strings will be displayed alongside the test results, making it easier to understand. We didn't see them, right? We do PyTests. That's it. I didn't see any doc strings appear when running PyTest, even though I do have one. TB short or verbose. PyTest-v. Was it with double dash? Double dash TB equals short. Again, I'm not seeing them. This is the test add, and this is the test add, but I don't see that appear, even with the TB short. So no. Okay then, you know what? We'll just say that there are no messages. Cool. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick push. Unit tests. There we go. Let's go and finish the article. Less brittle tests, pleasant refactoring sessions. You want to deal with a newly created value objects as your aggregate method input. By testing your aggregate directly, you make the aggregate unit test aware of the nature of the input. So you would have to repair the test by providing a value object to your system under tester, SUT, instead of the primitive. That's the don't. The do is your application services test would not need to know the existence of the newly created value object. No unit test broken. All right, let me wrap my head around this again. Damn, this post is a bit harder to read if you're me and don't have any experience with this. You want to deal with the newly created value objects as your aggregate method input, as my aggregate method input. Like when we have a method in the aggregate and in the input we accept a value object. Yeah, by testing your aggregate directly, you make the aggregate's unit test aware of the nature of the input, or basically how we create the value object. But if we only test the commands or use cases, would not need to know the existence of the newly created value object. No unit test broken. I do not understand that. Okay, moving on then. No perfect design allowance. Think of it. If you practice inside out from the aggregate, you would be tempted to model it deeply with the perfect design you have in mind. Why? Because you know because you know that if it's subject to change, you will break your tests and you don't want it. You will be forced to emerge a perfect design from the beginning. Focus on the application or domain service and you will be able to draft a design that is perfect for today but not tomorrow. You will improve your subtle design after a day without breaks. If you practice inside out from the aggregate, you would be tempted to model it deeply with the perfect design you have in mind. Do I understand this as well? Inside out from the aggregate, you would be tempted to model it deeply with the perfect design you have in mind. Why? Because you know that if it's subject to change, you will break your tests, and you don't want it to break your tests. So you focus on writing the perfect design from the very beginning. Okay. If you focus on the behavior you need today, you won't get carried away implementing stuff you don't need. True, just like we did with this. Pretty much. Focus on the application or domain service and you will be allowed to draft a design that is perfect for today but not tomorrow. Yeah, cool. Well, today we don't have anything. We have to start somewhere. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Early execution of the hexagon. The engine of your app starts at the hexagon boundary. The application service. By test driving or focusing on your aggregate directly, you won't be able to execute a demo of the engine because you're in full inside out from the leaf, from the aggregate to you. From the aggregate, you need the app service to execute. I don't like how this post is written. Like that you need to have because you're in full inside out from the leaf, from the aggregate, having a walking skeleton. From the previous point, you will take time on your aggregate design to get it perfect. By focusing on the application service first, before diving into the aggregates implementation, your code is executable very early, at any time. In fact, from the first minute of coding. Outside in from the hexagon entry. I demonstrate in live coding how to evolve such through my live trainings. Okay. So this guy is saying that we should write the application service or like the use cases first, and then the aggregates and their stuff. So like when we first test the commands or the use cases so that the code is executable very early. Is that you write your tests at a high level and then move into the model layer? The model layer means the domain model, like not the application, but the domain. We did domain first, right? We're testing the domain right now, and then we're gonna get out. And when they pass, your outer tests pass too. So that's what he's saying. Like test your test your commands or use cases first, and then moving to test the aggregates implementation. Basically what we did now, but we don't have any commands or use cases, so there's nothing to test. Outside in from the hexagon entry. Why does he refer to this as like a hexagon boundary? What does that mean? And that's the danger he's speaking about. All right, yeah. You have the application services, the domain model inside, and then through the adapters, we basically do this with the ports and adapters. Yeah. Okay, so we're yet to define this. That's how I know it, the ports and adapters. And also like the hexagon, but yeah. Right, so usually we had controllers, and these controllers are now using services, and inside of the services we're using our application or domain business logic, aka our aggregate routes inside of the service here, and there's a repository that connects that. I'm gonna need to see but yeah, this is in the hexagonal, right? We don't even plan to do this. This looks about right. In this case, the presentation is the REST framework. The REST framework is going to use use cases to achieve the functionality. And inside of the use cases, we are going to be using the aggregate routes to basically trigger the logic that we want. And then we're just going to pass the aggregate route to a repository, so the repository will save the aggregate route and all of its nested entities and value objects, and it can easily do that inside of a single transaction because we're already in the infrastructure layer at that point, right? That's how we're going to be doing this, right? So right now we're focused only on here. Inside of the entities, we're basically building out the business logic. We don't have any persistence. We don't have anything. We just need the business logic. Once that's done, we're just going to be, we're going to be doing we're going to move on to the use cases. And the difference between the clean architecture stuff that I did is that use cases represented, this is going to be confusing. Use cases represented let's open this. Specific functionalities. Let's see. Actually, that's it. That's about right. Application uses entities, but I had controllers as well. We're not gonna have, probably we're not gonna have controllers in this case, or should we? Because yeah, this is clean architecture, and looking at this is also clean architecture. It has the infrastructure and presentation layer here. Use cases are inside, but it's not directly use cases. When we're talking about presentation uses controllers to that wrap use cases, but our business logic was mainly in use cases. Like create a link, sign in, add link to create to collection. In our case, with our project, the current project, that would be what? That would be create skill, or find or obtain skill, so that you can, attach it to a profile or whatever. And then inside we do this. But since we're using, is that going to be an overkill? Should we have a use case that says, let's find like a scenario. Should we have a use case that's more, should we make our use cases more, damn it, can't express myself, with more wider responsibilities instead of individual operations like we had in this case? Because in this case, we might say create a link, right? It was a link and collection, like a link sharing application. Or let's say to-do. We have a to-do application. To-dos have lists. When we create a to-do, we can optionally add it to a list. And that means if the list doesn't exist, we need to create it and then do some validation and stuff. So the controller was create to do. That was the top level function. And then the controller used multiple use cases which obtained, did that in those individuals operations, like create the link or check if the link exists, or, create the collection if it doesn't exist, and then after that add the link to the collection. Those were the individual stuff. But in this case, because our models are not anemic, they are rich, they are going to do all of these, basically do all that logic, I feel like we don't need controllers, and our use cases are going to become the controllers. So there's going to be a use case create link, and inside of that use case there's going to be all sorts of logic, like check if the link is valid or not, check if it exists, do we have a collection input? If we do, can like create the collection, right? Or check if the collection already exists before creating it, yada yada yada. All of that's going to be in the use case. In this implementation that we did a few months ago, that was that was what the controllers did. But now the use cases are going to do that. Isn't that confusing? That is confusing to me. But we designed this in a way that we can have anemic methods. We moved the logic to the use cases, not the actual methods. But now our logic is in the models, right? The skill contains the logic to add the or remove the aliases. The user will contain the logic to update the profile or add skills to the profile, or job listing and stuff like that. Now that logic is inside of the root aggregate, or not the root aggregate, but the entities themselves. So how about that? That changes things. If that logic sits there, that means we don't need another layer. That means we'll just get rid of the controllers, and our use cases are going to be controllers in this case, right? Any thoughts on that? But it does seem like that's going to be the case. And it's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a bit weird. Basically, yeah. Yeah, because we are implementing this logic right now in the models, like this stream and the previous stream. That means it's like one layer down. That means this is redundant. We can't get rid of this, of course. This one is redundant. This one is going to be the orchestrator of individual operations, and the individual operations are going to be defined here, like add alias, etc. Yeah, and we did the clean architecture that way. The stream. Yeah, I should have done DDD before clean architecture, because when I started doing this clean architecture, it just made sense, you know, that this is the way to implement this with the interface adapters as orchestrators, and we did authentication checks here, and we did authorization checks here, and it just made sense, you know, just made perfect sense at the time. But now, since we have the logic here, we also need to think about that. Authorization checks, authentication checks, those kinds of things. I don't know where we are going to be doing them. Because we're using Django, Django has all of these middlewares. Of course, Next.js does as well, but Django suggests we use middlewares to achieve that, you know, to achieve those checks, that logic. Authorization, authentication, are we logged in or not? Are we a paying user or not? Etc. So we might as well move that over there, not even start or like reach the API endpoint, the handler. Not even reach the handler if the user is not properly authorized to invoke that operation, that whole operation. So yeah, it might be even be simpler and faster than clean architecture, because we technically with this approach and the authorization checks in the application layer, that means that for every use case that you trigger that can be multiple, you do authorization checks. Yeah, you can decide based on the complexity if you ever need a use case object for what you want to do. Yeah. Okay, so that's basically what we're doing now. It's still going to be the same, pretty much the same architecture here. It's just we're not going to have this part right here, no controllers. Right, yeah. We started off without the interface adapters, but we reached a point when we did this clean architecture, we reached a point that we actually needed to have another layer here to orchestrate the individual use cases. But now I don't see a reason why we need to have this. Pretty much, yeah. Django also has serializers, so we are going to be doing that. Django REST framework has serializers. Yep. Okay. Pretty much like this, except there's not going to be controllers. Use cases are going to be controllers. They're going to define the bigger operation, like for example, create link, and then contain like if we need to add the link to a collection, it's going to do that, like the check and the create collection inside of the create link use case, because that's the logic. That's the application logic to create a link. And then entities are basically keeping that individual, are defining those individual operations, like creating an actual collection. Okay. I guess that's good. So yeah, we only need use cases. We started to write. Did we, or we didn't actually? We didn't actually start to write any application code. We're still in the domain code. Yeah, Okay, cool. So where are we now? We set up the unit test. We also checked out this article. Pretty much all done, at least for the to-dos that we had for this stream. I would just continue working on the rest of the models, basically, right? Because we picked skill, but we're not in a situation where we can actually write some codes, because skill is just skill and that's it. I don't even know what the API, the REST API is going to look like, but we'll get there. I think we should focus on the user now. We need to extend the user, the base, the user that comes with Django. We need to extend it and add our own stuff to it. And there's also the user profile entity. There's also the position entity. A lot of stuff, basically. Okay. Let's move on. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna focus on the user. Ooh. We're gonna focus on the user first, so that once we have the user and the user pretty much has, you know, everything, we can start to look into the other stuff. See, job listing is there. There's no job listings here. The job listing is where job listing ID is here. Yeah, it's in the resume. Yeah. Cool. There's a resume ID, but we're going to implement this. We're going to implement this later. We can use. Check this out. Question. We have a resume ID that's, you know, used in the user aggregate, but we also have a resume with its own ID. That's what the ID is. So we can basically use that, like we can define the resume ID in the resume application in Django, but use that ID here in the user, probably. Is that allowed? That's a good question, actually. Let's figure it out. Let's ask the robot. In domain-driven design, we have an aggregate root named user that contains a value object named resume ID, right? There's also a resume aggregate root that defines its own ID. Can we reference the resume aggregate ID inside of the user aggregate? I know that if we're referencing aggregates, we need to only reference root aggregates, and I guess this is the point. I guess we already designed it to do that, but in this case, yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah. We just like we have an ID on the skill aggregate root, we're gonna have an ID on the aggregate, and we can basically, yeah, we can easily pull it in. We're not gonna pull in the resume ID actually. That's just going to be a number, because the entity class provides us with the ID. Oh, it's going to be an ID. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's not going to be an explicit file, resume underscore ID. It's just going to be this type. Got it. Got it. Okay, so in this case, we have the skill, and it has, it has access to the resume ID. Will that be? Should we like go to the user, or should we do job listing first and then do the resume? We already have the user ID and the job listing ID, so, and then go back and do the user last, because we're gonna have the resume ID and skill ID, or it doesn't matter. I guess it doesn't matter. If you ask me, I want to work on the user first. Cool. All right, so git status is clean. We can actually go and override the user that comes with the Django, itself. We already have the application here. What we need to do is find a way how to override the user, the Django's user, and just finish these things right here. The user profile entity, the position entity, certifications, etc. I believe certifications should be nested entities as well. Yeah. Let me just make some more room in this case because it is a bit weird. Should be like this. Those are not like properties of the parent there. So the user has two properties, the user profile and the resume ID, and the profile has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties with these things. Oh. And the position has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The position is defined by these, basically. Okay, yeah, this is very weird, but I can't find a better way to like define these. To diagram these. They are defined. Okay. Yeah. Django user model override. Let's see how we can customize not authentication but like the model itself, what the user keeps, extend the default user model, or substitute a completely customized model. What's the difference between these two? Oh, okay. Substituting a custom user model. Some kinds of projects may have authentication requirements for which Django's built-in user model is not always appropriate. For instance, on some sites, it makes more sense to use an email address as your identification token instead of a username. Django allows you to override the default user model by providing a value for the auth user model setting that references a custom model. This dotted pair describes the label of the Django application, of course, and the name of the Django model. That's fine. So we can build an abstract user. We can import an abstract user, create our user entity, and pass it to the abstract user. Pass the abstract user, or like extend it. Also, we also need to register that entity. Changing to a custom user model. Oh, we didn't even try to register the skill. Actually, you see that? So in infra Django admin, we should register. We don't. No, we shouldn't. That's for the database model, not the domain model. There's huge difference there. So abstract user is most likely the database model, which we don't have defined even for the skill yet. We're gonna be doing that when we define the repositories, because we still don't work with databases. But okay, let's just see. Let's go back and do the extending the existing user model. If the changes you need are purely behavioral and don't require any change to what's stored in the database, you can create a proxy model. No. If you wish to store information related to a user, you can create a one-to-one field to a model containing the fields. So like, let's say an employee and the user is that, and basically the user, the custom user references the user object. That's the thing. Should we, which way should we go? I'm thinking about substituting the user model, a completely customized user model, but I'm not sure if the DRF simple JVT is going to allow that, because we're using the simple JVT package to actually implement authentication. Login logout works with this. Hold on a second. Let me actually, if it's actually connected to the user in any way. Let's boot up Docker. Get the database up. And now we're going to check the database to see the tokens that are created. There's the user, and if we substitute this, it's just going to be a totally different, user. There's also user groups and user permissions, and it should work. There's just user ID and that's it. That should work if we just swap out the implementation of this. And now there are the tokens, the outstanding ones and the tokens, and there is a user ID. But again, if we just substitute it, that's why Django allows us to do this probably. That's the thing. If we want to substitute it, this thing right here, where the authentication user model points, I guess simple JVT also uses the whatever user is defined in Django. So where's the ID? This is the ID, and just use that one instead. I guess that's the case. Yeah, that means we can easily substitute it. Maybe, but we'll see. Because also, we also check for the email and password, and we don't do that manually. DRF does that for us. So URLs. This is the login. This is the token refresh. This is the sign out, and this is the register. I should actually change these. Login, register, like logout, not sign out. And we'll just keep this. I know it's token and token, blacklist, but we don't care. Oh, of course, it's not running. Let me actually run. Run server. Let's try to log in. There it is. Let's try to log out. Oh yeah, we need the actual refresh token, the new one, because that one doesn't exist. There's a new one, 200 OK. There we go. So log out, log in, and register. Sign up, sign in, and sign out. Yeah, that's more consistent. Instead of log, we're gonna use sign. Nice. And we'll just keep that token refresh, sign in. There we go. Grab that. Sign out. Sign out. Paste the new token. 200 OK. And we just need sign up. I guess we can add spaces here as well. Sorry, gotta do it. And instead of register, we have sign up. Probably because the user already exists. There we go. Created. Okay, cool. We're gonna be using the sign, not log, like login, logout. It's just more consistent, and we're just going to keep token refresh because that's what it does. Now, sign in. You see this token obtain per view as view. This means that the simple JVT package checks for the email as well, not just for the token. So I don't know how it does that. And if we have an extended user or substituted user, does it know how to work with that one? And it's basically just the username. But we're going to be using email. So we need to, we need to check. It says the robots. When using DRF simple JVT package for authentication, and when substituting, if we want to substitute Django's user model, should we also implement, or like, should we re-implement authentication? Question mark. Because apparently the model is different. No, you don't need to re-implement. That's what I want to hear. Create your custom user, update the settings, set the auth user, migrate, update your serializers. We don't have serializers. Custom token obtained per view. Okay, so we do need to re-implement this, right? Custom token obtained. Oh, it's just a serializer, I guess. Token email is user email and return token. Right. Custom user. Username field is email. Required field is okay, so we're not going to have a username, but we are going to say username field is email, right? And we want a custom serializer because we don't want to have a username in the token, but we want to have an email. Here's the access token. If I go to jwt.io and paste that token here, we are going to have what? Oh, it's just a user ID 16 and that's it. Okay, so it's just the ID then. We don't even need a custom serializer. We do if we want to add the email in the payload as well, but this, it just keeps the user ID. Cool. Okay, well, this is fine. Unless we need the email into the JVT, then sure, we can add all those things. So far, we're just gonna keep it. Yeah, I guess we are free to just extend Django's, or substitute Django's user model. Very cool. Okay, let's go to the user now, domain. There's no entity, so I'm just going to say root entity.py, and this is where we're going to create our user root entity. And I'm going to say user, and I'm going to pass entity as well. I'm going to need to bring it in. shared domain base entity import entity. So now we have a user ID, and that user ID is not an auto increment user ID. This user ID is actually going to be hold on, where's my camera cropped? There we go. This user ID is actually going to be a snowflake ID, and we did that in the previous stream if you want to see how we implement it. Okay, there's our user. Let's see what Django says about substituting the user. This is the extending. I want to substitute. Yeah. We need to add this. That's fine. Using a custom user model when starting a project. So there's the user. It also has an abstract user that we need to bring in, but that's the database model, right? When we're talking about the root entity and the database model, those are two different things. We are going to create a mapper when we start to look into the damn, I'm blanking out. I don't know what's going on. Into the, what was the word again? Repository. When we start to look into the repository, we are going to create those mappers that basically map between a database user and an entity user, and vice versa, you know, for saving. So that's when we need the models, but for the just the pure logic, we actually don't, right? We don't. And when we define the database models, we're just going to re-implement our entities in a way. They're going to be like database friendly, right? So far, what it says is just, yeah, this is the user, abstract user, and that's it. And then we can start adding other stuff or other properties into the user and define them as like a regular model. The abstract user a manager. There's a thing called manager as well. You should also define a custom manager for your user model. If your user model defines username, email, is staff, is active, blah, 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 the same fields, the same as Django's default, you can install Django's user manager. However, if your user model defines different fields, which we will, like that's the whole point of substituting the user model, you'll need to define a custom manager that extends the base user manager, providing two additional methods. So it extends on the base user manager, and it provides the create user should accept the username field, which is email in this case, plus all the required fields as parameters. If it uses the email as a username field, we'll just do that. We'll use email, and has a date of birth as a required, then this is going to be it. And then also create super user, the same thing, but it creates a super user in this case. And that means because Django implements the is super user fields, we also need to implement it in our custom user model as well, or the staff, or you know, these things. So we can say username field is the email. And then we can say get by natural key instead of like get by ID to obtain that. Okay. Okay, but yeah, so far, let's do this. We're gonna do this in the next stream because we're running out of time. But so far, this is what's happening. We are going to define the custom user model, but that's going to be like when we do the database stuff. Here we have the aggregate root, and we only need plain classes. We're not going to be extending any Django built-in stuff, right? We have the entity and we just need the logic to build the logic for this. But when we start to look into repositories to connect to the database and like read and write to the database, that's when we look into Django database models. And we're also going to build the mappers that maps between these two. So far, we don't even need to care about how Django uses or handles authentication until we're ready to, to test out or to implement that on the front end. I think we'll be just happy to stick to just plain entities, and yeah, that's gonna be it. Awesome. Yeah. Well, let me write some notes for the next stream. We're just going to continue working on the, let's see, Wednesday stream. Wednesday stream. All right, so continue working on the aggregates. We're not gonna worry about the database domains, the database models. We'll do that, some other time later on. Don't worry about. I need to like remind myself because I keep forgetting about it. Django's user model. Don't worry about DB models. Just implement logic. We'll see how that goes. Evie, how's it going? That's fine. We're done anyways. Yeah, we did the tests. Yeah, let's do a quick recap then. Yeah, we implemented unit tests for the skill aggregate. We tested like adding skills, making sure, duplications, we're handling duplications, or even like raising errors, specific errors when we want to. Oh, hold on a second. Specific errors. In DDD, you're supposed to create your own errors. Right now, we just raised, let me actually show you. Right now, we're using, hold on. I'm gonna not register, I'm basically going to pass this. There we go. But look at what we missed in the skill. We have the domain, we have the aliases. We're raising a value error. That comes from Django, right? Or Python. No, that actually comes from Python. In DDD, you're basically supposed to create your own custom errors instead of using these. Maybe we can go by just using value error. Maybe we're, breaking a rule there, but we should also look into custom errors because, yeah, we need to. If you want to like be DDD by example, we do need to look into custom errors. And I'm going to write that down so I don't forget it. Look into custom error classes. Yeah, So far, so good. Yeah. But yeah, we did unit tests. We covered the functionality of the skills, and we briefly looked into the user model in Django, just because the next aggregate that we want to work on is the user aggregate, just so we can see if we're going to have any hard time implementing a custom user model for the database, although we're not going to be doing that now. Turns out it's not going to be hard. We just need to make sure that we hook up those specific things like the the username field, the auth user model in settings.py, and also implement those two methods that we saw from the doc site. But yeah, when that day comes, we're gonna be doing all of that. We just wanted to make sure that we're not gonna hit a wall there. So far so good. Yeah, next stream is on Wednesday, and we're going to focus on the user aggregate. That means also implement the user profile and also implement, I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff, the certifications, the positions, the reference, the skills aggregate, because we already have the skills aggregate. So yeah, Wednesday at the same time, 9 a.m. on the eastern coasts, if you're in the North America. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I'm gonna see you all on Wednesday. Take care.